here's what I'll say, Javon. I'm going to give you and everybody else a little hope. And it has less to do with Nebraska and more to do with the national scene, but some of it has to do with Nebraska as well. So I'm not going to be able to run these numbers this year because they get kind of wiped out because of the COVID year in 2020, because there were short seasons. But for 3 years before that, I ran these numbers because I was interested to see how many teams in the Power Five had what I would consider to be a significantly different season than they did the year before. And the way I defined that, and everybody could have their own definition, but for me, I thought a good cutoff point was 3 games. How many teams were either 3 games better or 3 games worse than the year before? Because I think that's a pretty significant change. If you're a 6-6 team and you're 9-3 the next year, that's
pretty good.
Significant jump. If you're 3-9, you go to 6-6, etc. So I kind of use three games, at least 3 wins, increase or decrease as the barometer. Now we all think of college football as really not changing, but that I think has been put into our heads by the elites. Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, to a lesser extent, Georgia, Oklahoma in the last 6-7 years. They haven't changed. They're always there. But everybody else, there's a lot of fluctuation. So I ran those numbers for 3 consecutive years I was just curious, out of the 65 Power 5 teams, how many of them drastically changed the next year? And I didn't expect to see the numbers I did. Between 18 and 23 teams, those 3 seasons. So we're talking about a third of the teams have a pretty drastic increase or decrease from season to season. Well, when you look at Nebraska, they would be a prime candidate for that. They won 3 games that they just blew out the other team. So those were 3 solid wins. There are other games, as we talked about a million times last year, and the rest of the nation did too, when you talk about Nebraska football, were 1-score games. Now, I'm not going to go overboard and say just because they played within 1 score, those teams, that they should have won those games. Well, there was a reason they were 1 score behind, but still 1 score.
Lots of reasons.
The Michigan State game was excruciatingly close. You know, there were some of them that were like 1 score. Okay, they played well, they were close, like the Oklahoma game. But I at least came away from that game thinking, yeah, Nebraska could have won that game, but Oklahoma was the better team. But I came away from like the Michigan State game thinking they should have won that game. You know, they gave up a punt return with about 4 minutes left in the game. They went to overtime. You know, they didn't give up a first down the entire second half. They should have won that game. You know, they had games like that. So
out of found ways to lose.
They had 9 of those. If they can be realistic, 5 of them, they're 8-4.
And I mean, obviously, watching all those games, you like to think that they're addressing that and have done everything they can, which that arrow points straight at the special teams, which have really, really been a problem here. And I wonder how they can, have stats on that and blame special teams. I wonder how many of those losses are blamed on the special teams. If there was an official stat for that, you know what I mean? But, special teams and turnovers, obviously, and penalties, it's stuff that is dumb and is fixable stuff. And, when you're talking about 1-score games, obviously you're looking at all those mistakes and you do everything possible to fix that. And I think they've done that. Well, at least they've tried to do that. We'll see how it all looks here. February 20 whatever, 7th or I'm not sure, 8th, 28th.